we're back to the Spirit's book. We last week we are on chapter book 1, chapter 2, and we started the item spirit and matter last week. We talked about the first 3 questions of it. We talk about matter and covered a little bit about if matter has existed for all eternity, what is the definition of matter, and then actually only the first 2. So now today we start with a question that it's a basic question of spirit. If you don't understand what is the spirit, then it becomes a little bit difficult to understand all the rest. The rest is a consequence of what is the spirit. All right. So, Philip, you read for us?
Sure. What is the spirit? The intelligent principle of the universe. What is the essential nature of the spirit? Your language is incapable of properly defining the spirit. It is nothing to you because it is not a tangible thing, but for us, it is something. Remember this, nothing is nothingness, and nothingness does not exist.
Okay. So, what is the spirit? The intelligent principle of the universe. We know, and we are going to cover this very shortly, that we have in the universe, we have the creator, which we studied in the first, in chapter 1, and everything else is the creation. The creation is divided in the spirit, in the spiritual principle and spirits, and all the rest, which is what derives from the universal fluid, we are going to study in the next item. So it's the nature of the spirit. The spirits tell us we don't have a language to describe it. Because it's not a tangible thing, tangible in the sense of it's not matter, it's not energy. We don't have a word to describe it, but the spirit says it is something. Of course, it is important to remember that the spirit is not the physical body, it's not the spiritual body. Both the physical and spiritual body derives from the universal fluid, are matter, and the spirit is not matter. So the definition that the spirits give to us, the intelligent principle of the universe, is the one that we're going to stay with, because that's the definition that better describes the spirit. There is not much else that we can add. What we can add is what it's not. It's not everything else. You remove God, you remove the spirit, the spirits and the spiritual principle. Everything else is the universal fluid, and it derives from it. Okay. Now we're going to see some attributes of the spirit now. Okay. Questions, comments? Okay. Everybody knows what's the spirit. Good. As I joked before we started, if you don't believe in spirit, you are in the wrong meeting.
I have a question. I'll probably.
Sure,
I want you to clarify this for me. Okay, the essential nature of the spirit, it is nothing to me. That's what the book says.
It
is nothing to, because it's not.
It is nothing to you in terms of a tangible thing, right? The Spirit said It's nothing that you know and understand in terms of what you understand about matter and physicality. Because what they are trying to say, it's not matter, it's not physical, it's not energy, it's not fluid, nothing like that. So it is nothing to you in terms of you cannot define.
It's nothing to me because it is not tangible, I cannot define.
Yeah, but for us, the spirits, it's something because there is no such thing as nothingness. Yeah, I know it's a little bit
But it says
confusing.
nothingness does not exist.
Yeah, what the spirits are trying to say, and remember, this is 1857, right? So we had very basic notions of what is not tangible, right? We had a little bit of know a little bit about energy, a little bit. It's called fluid. A lot of things that are nowadays we don't call fluid were called fluid at that time. But nothing that you know. What the spirits are trying to say here, nothing that you know can define what is the spirit. Yes, Danny.
I'm a little stuck here with the word intelligent and like actually the two words, like intelligent, principle. Principle is the main thing or as a beginning of something. And intelligent, it has intelligence.
Intelligent, yeah, because it is capable of of using intelligence. We are going to see in the next question that is not synonymous with intelligence, is an attribute of the spirit. But this spiritual principle, since the beginning of the development, has an intelligent evolutionary path, right? It's, if you think the spirit evolves, matter does not evolve. Matter transforms. Okay, so that's the separation between the spirit and matter, which is important also. You'll find that in the Genesis.
But
intelligent principle, because it's from the spirit that everything is produced and generated, originating from God through the spirit acting on matter.
So, and then I wonder if back then the concept of universe and the knowledge about the universe was way more limited than it is to us today.
Yes.
I'm giving this answer like, I don't know, it doesn't make sense. Nothing is nothingness and nothingness does not exist. So like we know much more about the universe today. Something is a little off or not making sense. I wonder for me, and I wonder if it has to do with the understanding of the universe at first of all.
I don't think so. I'm not sure where you are confused, because the universe at that time, the knowledge of the universe was limited, and I think Luis mentioned last week, and the spirits already mentioned a universe way beyond our knowledge at that time, right? And he mentioned in Genesis. But it doesn't have anything to do with the universe. Here, the spirits are talking about the intelligent principle of the universe in the most ample sense of the universe, in the complete sense of the universe. Because, again, if you divide everything between God, spirits or spiritual principle, and universal fluid, right? Then that part, you have God as the creator and the creation as the intelligent principle. The rest, matter, universal fluid, it's not intelligent. The intelligence is produced and developed on the spirit side, right? I don't know if that's better.
Yeah, I missed the first session last week.
Okay.
I got into the second part. Yeah.
We discussed matter last week, but it doesn't really add much for you. What the thing he said here, the Spirit said, matter is the link that bonds the Spirit. It's the instrument that serves it, and at the same time it carries out its action. So spirits act over matter, and when we say that we are co-creators of the universe, it's the Spirit acting over matter that creates everything that exists, even in the universe, right? As we talk about the spirits that work directly in connection with God, the perfected spirits, as co-creating in the universal sense. But we are all creating on our daily lives. We are creating on a very small sense, but it's always the Spirit creating. Matter, it doesn't create by itself, right? It follows the natural laws, but there is no intelligence in matter. It comes all from the Spirit. Okay. I don't know, Elmo, if you can help me here, clarify a little bit, if you have something to add.
I think what the spirits are trying to tell us is this: the spirit exists. It is something. It is something that at this point in our evolution, it is inexplicable to us. It is inexplicable to us because usually when you explain something to someone, we have to use analogies. You have to have a comparative approach. You have to have something that can relate to the thing they're trying to explain. And with the spirit, there is absolutely nothing that you can make analogous, that you can make a relationship, that you can make a comparison. But at the same time, it's not nothing. It's very important to say it's not nothing, but there is nothing that we can use to make you understand what is the spirit. And even worse, your language cannot, you articulate cannot, this is very limited to explain what the spirit is. And when it comes to the intelligent principle of the universe, is this the same universe that they know a little and you know a little bit more today, and that we will know a little more in 2,000 years from now is the same universe. So what they know then and now is a little bit redundant. It doesn't really matter. The understanding of the universe. But that spirit is the creation from God that has the ability to act and transform matter in an objective way. That's why it is the principal intelligence of the universe. We can act upon matter and transform matter in an objective way, not accidentally, but with a purpose, with an objective.
Okay. All right.
24.
Okay, yeah.
Is spirit synonymous with intelligence? Intelligence is an essential attribute of the spirit. In your world, they are used interchangeably as a common principle, so much so that for you, they are the same thing.
Okay. Here, the spirits are telling us that intelligence is an essential attribute of the spirit. It's not the same thing. The spirit develops its intelligence as an attribute of the spirit. The same way we develop free will. Once you start the individual spirit phase, you start developing free will, which is another. So no, going back, the intelligence. So it's an attribute of the spirit, but it's not the spirit itself. The thing is, at that time, when you call someone, and still today, sometimes we mix things and definitions, and we call the intelligent being, putting intelligence into the spirit as one thing only. But the spirits make it very clear, it's an attribute of the spirit, right? It's not the spirit. Like we discussed last week, and Sunday we discussed for a long half hour, thought. Thought is an attribute of the spirit, but it's not the spirit. And we discussed a little bit about where does the spirit ends and matter begins. And Elmo brought a very good example from the book In the Greater World, that we don't have the clear definition where one ends and the other begins. But thought, again, is also not the spirit, like intelligence is not the spirit. They are attributes of the spirit. Okay. Yeah, it's a little bit complex here, but we need to.
Now, can I? May
Yes.
I? Can
Sure.
I think I'm going to come up with my own definition, I guess. You know, language is definitely limited when it attempts to define spirit.
Yeah.
At the level of understanding, or at the level of whatever advancement that we're in, we can just look at it in the spirit as in the intelligent principle. Though we have to understand that that intelligence is just an attribute. That's all. Because the language cannot define spirit. But at the level of development that we're in, let's call the spirit intelligence, because that's all we can do. But we have with the caveat that, yes, we're going to call it intelligence principle, but with the caveat that that's just an attribute. That's the only, that's kind of what we say, basically.
Yes, perfect. That's it. Yeah, it's perfect. Thank you. Perfect.
So much so that for you, they are the same thing. That's how and Jose almost said that there are no possible analogies or metaphors, things or symbols that can tell me what the spirit is. So let me put it that way. Make sense? I
Yes,
guess.
sir. Anyone else? Okay, so let's bring matter into the equation to confuse a little bit more.
Don't complicate my life.
Is the spirit independent of matter, or is it only a property, as colors are a property of light and sound is a property of air? They are distinct from one another, but the union of the spirit and matter is vital to give intelligent activity to matter. A, is this union also necessary for the manifestation of the spirit? Spirit here refers to the principle of intelligence rather than the spiritual individualities usually designated by that term. For you, yes, because your physical makeup is not designed to perceive the spirit apart from matter. Your senses are not designed for that.
Okay, so let's try to understand here what they say. First thing is very important. Spirit independent from form of matter. It's not a property, as colors are a property to light and sound is a property of air. No, spirits and matter are distinct from one another, but spirits act over matter. Spirits use matter to give activity, right? To give intelligent activity to matter. Spirits, so for spirits to act on the physical or spiritual planes, they need to act over matter. And one thing here, and then they ask if this union is necessary for the manifestation of the spirit. The spirits tell us that for us here, yes, because we are not yet designed to perceive spirit apart from matter. So what they leave it here open is that eventually one day, maybe when we are perfected spirits, maybe before, we will be able to manifest without matter. Again, we know nothing about it. I don't know what else to say about it. I'm just saying that the spirits give us an impression that they can communicate beyond matter when they manifest themselves. But that's all we are going to say, because we don't know more than that. One thing that I know is discussed a lot is if once you reach perfection or the level of perfected spirit, if you still have a perispirit, or you no longer need a perispirit. And according to our understanding, you will always have a perispirit. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to incarnate. Like Jesus incarnated on earth, being a perfected spirit, but if he didn't have a perispirit, there would be no way for him to incarnate. Jesus did not reincarnate on earth, Jesus incarnated on earth. So the spirit is always connected with matter, because it is through matter that it acts and gives, as they say here, intelligent activity. That's our knowledge that comes from the spirits, and that's as far as we know in terms of how spirits act. Again, they leave an opening here that maybe there is something between the communication of the spirits that goes beyond matter, but they don't give any more information, and we really have no idea what else is there beyond what they say here. Okay. Comments, questions?
But I like to make a comment, a remark.
Sure.
Remember, we have to remember that when they say spirit here, okay, we have to look at it as intelligence, the principal intelligence, which is only an attribute of the spirit. And that intelligence, that only attribute of the spirit, is the one that needs matter for manifestation at the level of advancement that we're in.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly that. Nothing to add.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. But yeah.
And then the next question confuses us a little bit more.
And
okay.
Can
Go ahead.
Can a spirit be conceptualized without matter, and vice versa? Of course, by thought.
Okay, so the question that Kardec asked the spirits is, can spirit be conceptualized without matter and matter without spirit? And the answer from the spirits is, of course, by thought. And it's, I don't really have much to say there, because I think the spirits gave a very short and direct answer, and I don't think I have anything to add. They just tell us that we can conceptualize the spirits without matter, or vice versa, by thought. We discussed thought a lot on Sunday, and we discussed a little bit last week, which is also an attribute of the spirit, right? The thought, the ability to think. But when you put, thought is also matter. So that brings you conceptualize the spirit with a thought, but thought there is matter. I really don't have much more to say here, because I think the answer is simple and direct. I don't know, Elmo, if you have anything to add here.
I think they said that you, yes, of course.
Barely hear you, Elmo.
Better now?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, it says, of course, in a philosophical way, but not in a practical way. So in practicality, the spirit will always be associated with matter and vice versa, but not vice versa. I'm sorry. The spirit will also be associated with matter, as you said. Even the Christus would have to have a component of matter to be able to be useful to do something.
Yeah.
So purely philosophical, yes, you can make that conceptualized, but in practicality, no, you can't.
Okay.
27.
Yes,
João,
please. Sorry, Daniela.
what does it mean by thought? What does it mean by thought?
What do you
can
mean?
think
What does
of
it mean?
it.
Thought?
Yeah, the answer, like, of course, by thought. What does it mean?
That you can think of it. You can philosophize on it.
Oh, that's what you mean by philosophy. Like you
Yeah.
just
Yes.
all right. Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay.
27. Therefore, are there two general elements of the universe, matter and the spirit? Yes, and God, the creator of all things, is above them. These three elements are the principle of all that exists, the universal trinity. However, the universal fluid must be added to the material elements. It acts as the intermediary between spirit and matter, as the body is too crude for the spirit to be able to act directly on it. Although this fluid may be classified as part of the material element from another perspective, it is distinguished by certain special properties. If it were simply classified as matter, there would be no reason why the spirit could not also be classified as matter. It is something placed between the spirit and matter. It is fluid, just as matter is material. And through countless combinations under the action of the spirit, it may produce an infinite variety of things of which you only know a very small portion. Without this universal, primitive, and elementary fluid, the agent employed by the spirit, matter would permanently remain divided and would never acquire the properties given to it by gravity. A, is this fluid what we call electricity? We have said that it is open to countless blends and arrangements. What you call electric fluid, magnetic fluid, and so on are modifications of the universal fluid, which is only matter of a more perfect and subtle nature. It may be regarded as being independent.
Okay. So here the spirits introduce the concept of the three general elements of the universe, which is God, the creator of all things, then matter and the spirit. But right after that, they continue saying, however, you have to add the universal fluid, because that's what is in the origin of everything that it's matter. Everything derives, that everything that is not God and not spirits or spiritual principle derives from the universal fluid. Now, also we have to note here that the word fluid at that time it's not the same as it's most known today. You know, where as Luis always say in his classes, it's not the fluid, the light fluid, the fluid that you use to for your lighter, to light your cigarette. That's not the fluid that is defined here. Here, the fluid, we still don't have a better word for it. A lot of people are using energy, which I think probably it's just a different word, but not a better word, because unfortunately, the word fluid, it's differently understood today. But if we here in Spiritism, and again, the spirits always tell us, define words and use words according to your understanding. So the same way that Spiritism, we use soul for an incarnated spirit, different from other religions. Here, when we talk about the universal fluid, we talk about this origin of everything that is matter and between, to reach from matter in the physical way and matter in the spiritual way, and dark matter and antimatter and all the other definitions of matter, they all come from this universal fluid. We call it fluid, and we'll continue using the word fluid because it's the word that the spirits have used, and is the word that you find throughout the codification. But it's very important to always remember it is not fluid in the sense that we know today, water or fuel or things like that, that we use the word fluid. It's not the same. It's a primordial element of the universe, the universal fluid, okay? So that's very important. Now, for the spirit to act upon anything, it needs to use this universal fluid. And through that, it produces an infinite variety of things that, as the spirits tell us, we only know a very small portion. But without it, there'll be no matter as we know it. So everything that is not spirit and that is not God derives from this primordial fluid, the universal fluid element. Primordial element, the universal fluid. Okay, it's a concept that's very important to understand and to make peace with the word, because it's a word that we are going to continue using in Spiritism. And when we talk about fluid in Spiritism, it is the universal fluid, and it's and elements produced by it. Okay. Now the second question, and then Kardec asks the spirits if this the fluid that we call electricity. Remember, electricity at that time was beginning to develop, and the spirit said no. We use it. You can call electric fluid, magnetic fluid, but they're all modifications of the universal fluid. And they say the universal fluid is matter of a more perfect and subtle nature. But it's you have to think of always when we think about the creation. If for those that watched classes by Julio, you remember that he put in the board, right, the God above, and then he divided one line the spirit or the spiritual principle, and then the universal fluid, and then he started subdividing the universal fluid in 1,000 small things, ending into a question mark, which is the part that we still don't know, that is produced by universal fluid. But it's important to have that concept that he gave us in mind, or you can have a concept of a triangle where you have God at the top, the spirit or spiritual principle in one side, and the universal fluid and everything else that derives from the universal fluid. That again, it's not intelligence, doesn't develop, it transforms. And you through the action of spirits, it transforms into different things, for lack of a better word. Okay. It's a very important concept. Elmo, I would like you to add something here if you can, because that is a fundamental concept that we have to understand to study Spiritism.
No, I don't have anything to add.
All right.
It's right there. It's one creator, and that creates two basic things: universe, cosmic fluid, and from the other side, intelligent principle, from where the spirit derives, and everything else derives from the other side, from the universe, cosmic fluid. Um, At that time, they didn't have Einstein have not brought the relative to us yet, so perhaps they make a differentiation between energy and matter. But now we know it's all the same thing. Matter is energy is matter in a different state. I think today is much easier for us to comprehend what the Spirit is talking about there. At that time, it would be a little bit more difficult. But it's important to understand that now this fluid that the spirits are talking about, it's not what they call electricity, it's not magnetic fluid. All those things are made from this fluid, derives from this fluid.
Thanks. Luis, anything to add here?
Now I am on mute. I don't know. I think you have explained it very well. I like to do parallels with the current theories on up to date theoretical physics, but I don't think that will actually add anything. The word fluid is complicated. It's not lighter fluid, as you mentioned, and I think you pretty much explained it. Um, I like to remind everybody that of what we learned from Genesis and other books of the creation, especially Genesis, that universal fluid has not only what we call matter, but also all the forces that we see in the world that surround us, and possibly a number of forces that we don't know about. It is carried by universal fluid. That has a lot similarity with the current particle physics, where we believe that forces are actually carried by particles. Anyway, I also like very much the parts that they talk about, that the spirits tells us about what would be ethereal matter compared with normal matter that we know. And they make a point to tell us that ethereal matter happens in a wider variety than the matter that we know here, with hundreds of elements and tens of thousands of different substances, primary substances. So I find it very interesting to think that uh, uh, it's sometimes difficult to think in English and Portuguese, that the ethereal spirits, uh, they developed all this technology based on ethereal matter with different process than we do, but it's how they uh, uh, they make spiritual cities, and they make all those things that we read about in André Luiz's books, and all the apparatus. So I find it extremely interesting. Sometimes we have a tendency to think that the uh, 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 world in other spheres is sort of static, but no, we are all evolving together. We are evolving in this world, and the guys are evolving in the other spheres. I find it so interesting, so exciting and charming and fantastic. Anyway, I didn't add anything. I believe I BS here, but sorry, I had to.
No, no, I think it was good. I was reading today in terms of the ability of the spirits to change their spirit format, and I was actually reading Genesis, right? That when someone appears, appears in front of you as a previous incarnation, it will assume the form of the incarnation the moment it appears in front of you, and then the next moment, when it's no longer in front of you, changes completely the perispirit. So how ethereal is the perispirit, and the ability of the spirit to manipulate the perispirit according to their level of involvement or their mental attitude, right? So
yes, and the spirits make a point to tell us that this has nothing to do with being more evolved or not. Very, let's say, primitive spirits, they learn the ability to do that. And I'm sure in your spiritual meetings, you have had a chance to interact with spirits that look like dragons or crocodiles or other funny stuff.
Monsters.
Monsters, yes.
Yeah.
Good word.
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay. Anyone else? Any questions here? Any doubts? We need to. It's a basic. We need to understand these basics, because it's the foundations of our study of spiritism is to understand the creation and the subdivisions of the creation.
If I might, Johnny, I think your point that we must make peace with the word fluid is a very good point. I had a lot of trouble with this world. I struggled and I finally made peace. So I've been through it, and I do recommend everybody to make peace with it, because it's there, it's gonna stay. It doesn't describe well, but you could call it bananas, but call it fluid. It's just better than just fight the word itself, because what's important is the concept.
Yeah. Unless we create, we know that the spirits create another word for us. One day we're going to continue to use fluid because it's what's here. So it doesn't make sense to change. It's really better as long as we understand what we're talking about. That's it. That's the what we need.
And the spirits, they don't care about words. They said it many, many times. You use the words you want. It's up to you. The important thing is that you understand what we are talking about.
Yeah. All right, Philip, let's go.
28.
John?
Yes, Renato. Sorry.
Sorry.
Your son-in-law wants less.
Yeah, I was thinking, it took me a while to try to figure out a question. Now, I was just wondering, since we are talking about God, matter, and the spirit, when people talk about words like nothing, words like vacuum, the absence of matter, those kind of things, where does that falls for us on that Trinity?
Everything that is not God and not spiritual principles / spirits, it's under universal fluid.
So when we say like vacuum, black hole, those stuff, they're all part of on the matter side.
Yeah.
Even with our language, we say there is nothing. It's still something that we cannot figure out what it is, right?
Exactly, like the black holes, right? That you don't know how to explain, and we cannot study because it gets everything inside and doesn't allow us to study. It's still matter. I'm sure Luis knows more about this. So go ahead, Luis.
Yeah, thank you, Renato. That was the lead I needed. I was not going to say anything about this, but this is very aligned with today's theoretical physics uh, uh, view. Today we do not believe that there is vacuum. Vacuum is something that does not exist. Sorry. Uh, Quantum perturbation in space cause it to continuously float in energy. So all the time, in what we call vacuum, there is creation and disappearance of matter. In a zero energy equation,
Field.
if I might say that.
Field.
So, excuse me?
Field. Field.
Yield.
Field.
Yes.
Zero energy field.
Yeah, no, field's not a good word. This has nothing to do with field. It's just that if this were vacuum, uh, from nothing, matter would come about and disappear. So today, and this is a result of quantum physics that a lot of people talk about it, but they do not really understand. Anyway, but so there's no nothingness. So Renato, forget about vacuum. Vacuum, the real vacuum in deep space does not exist. You can, make vacuum in a glass, but not in deep space. That's filled in the sense of there's plenty of things happening there. There's no nothingness. And as a parenthesis, Renato, you were missed last Sunday, and you really would have enjoyed being with us because we have fantastic discussions on incredible things. So that one is not gonna come back, Renato. You should have been there.
I told him that.
Don't worry. I'll brought it up again. Don't worry. John knows me. There will be plenty of opportunities to bring back.
And one of the things I have asked João and Elmo was a final, rational explanation on something very interesting that you would have loved to know about, so that you can, reply to your friends, etc., who challenge you on spiritism. But that was another day.
Thank you.
All right. Go ahead, Philip.
28. Since the spirit itself is something, would it be accurate and less confusing to call these two general elements inert matter and intelligent matter? Words are of little importance to us. You must formulate your expressions so that you may understand one another. Your disputes almost always arise from the lack of a common agreement over the use of words, because your language is incapable of describing that which transcends your senses. One obvious fact governs all our hypotheses. Matter in and of itself is not intelligent. Therefore, we see an intelligent principle independent of matter. The origin and connection of these two elements are unknown to us. As to whether they have a common source or the necessary points of contact, whether intelligence has an independent existence or is only a property or an effect, or even whether it is an emanation of the divinity, we have no answers for these questions. They appear to be distinct to us, and we therefore consider them to be two critical elements of the universe. We see a supreme intelligence above all this that governs all things and is distinguished from them by essential attributes. This supreme intelligence is what we call God.
Okay. So Kardec here still trying to make sense of what he's learning from the spirits. Remember, this is 1857. This is all very new to him. So he has to ask questions to fully understand what the spirits mean. So he asks if since the spirit itself is something, definition that the spirits gave us, then he said it would be more accurate or less confusing to call these two general elements inert matter and intelligent matter. Meaning you call matter that comes from the universal fluid inert matter, and the spirit intelligence matter. And the spirits, what Luis just mentioned, the spirits tell us, listen, words are of very little importance to us. You must understand each other. You must understand what you are talking about. So what they are saying here is, it doesn't really matter. As long as you understand the difference between spirits and universal fluid or matter, then how you put that into words, it's your problem, it's not ours. And then Kardec, the explanation from Kardec is, and that's very important, matter in and of itself is not intelligent, and that's very important. The intelligence comes from the spirit, an intelligent principle that is independent of matter. And he says the origin and connection between the spirit and matter or universal fluid are unknown to us. They all come from God, but it's important to understand that the intelligence comes from the spirit side, and the spirit uses intelligence to act on matter. Matter itself has no intelligence. That's why I'm saying for the third time that matter does not evolve. Matter transforms. Universal fluid does not evolve, transforms. The spirit evolves. Okay? So these are important concepts that Kardec and the spirits bring to us to complement our understanding. And first, we need to choose our words to understand what we're talking about, and that's why we go back to universal fluid, that we are going to continue using the word fluid to define the universal fluid and what derives from it. Also, you'll find a lot of literature that talks about universal cosmic fluid, but we think that it may be a redundancy because universal and cosmic is kind of, it's not exactly a synonym, but it's, it's like more or less like saying Kardecist spiritism that they do a lot in Brazil, which doesn't make any sense because it's spiritism is a spiritism. There is no Kardecism. Someone told in a lecture yesterday that Kardecism sounds a lot like a recipe, a recipe for a kitchen cook recipe. I found it funny. Anyways, back to what we're discussing here. So, two elements. Again, it's important to define. We are finishing this item here. Then next week we are going to study the properties of matter, which is a different subject. Proper of matter, meaning we're talking about the universal fluid and its consequences and whatever is derived from the universal fluid. But the distinction between the spirit and the universal fluid is what's important here. And actually, Renato had a very good question, and it's important, these sort of questions, right? But the concept that we have to have in mind is we have God, we have the spirits or intelligent principle, and everything else is under the universal fluid. And everything that is not the spirit, not God, that we cannot define what God, we cannot define God, we study that. The best definition we came with, it's that God is, and everything else, universal fluid. So everything that we don't understand, but it doesn't come from the spirit, it's universal fluid. Okay.
Let me make a comment, may I?
Sure, go ahead, Paco.
Okay. This is the way I understand it. I don't know what the spirit is. I only know that the spirit has an attribute that I call intelligence. That intelligence is needed in its interaction with the cosmic fluid for the manifestation of the spirit. Did I make sense? Huh?
Yes, perfect. That's it. Perfect definition.
I'm doing this to clarify that to myself. That's why I'm asking you if I'm on the right track.
Yeah, no, it's exactly that. The spirit has the spirit has intelligence, which is an attribute, uses this intelligence to act on the universal fluid,
To manifest itself.
To manifest itself and to produce what is produced from the universal fluid, everything else from the universal fluid.
Okay, that makes okay. I have to say it now.
Ac-
But it's called
Fluid.
Actually, that's a classic explanation. The spirit requires the universal fluid to communicate with the rest of the universe, being either incarnated or not incarnated. I believe we have a couple of minutes. If you allow me, João, it's
Yes.
always difficult for us to understand this possibility of something that's not matter. And when I give classes about this, I use an analogy. If I might try it on you, maybe it will clarify, maybe not. But anyway, let me try. Just 1 minute here. You guys are old enough to have heard of cassette tapes. Remember cassette tapes that you recorded music, then played music? So let's imagine.
You're dating me.
Let's imagine that these are two identical cassette tapes made of the same material with the same quantity of tape inside. Identical twins, okay? And let's suppose this is a blank magnetic tape, cassette tape. On this tape, I have recorded the music. What is the difference between the two? There's the same amount of matter in both, the same amount of energy. The one that has the music has just, a few parts of it aligned in a different way, with a different organization, with less entropy, if I might say that. But they are the same thing, but this one has something else. It has a music inside, but you can only hear the music with the help of the matter, of the tape. Without the tape as a means of communicating the music to us, we can have no access to it. So this analogy has helped people to understand this thing about spirit and matter and how one allows, the other. It's an analogy. It's a limited analogy, but maybe it will help you, Paco. It helps you.
I liked it. I think it's interesting. Very good analogy. Thank you. Okay, 7:30. Anyone else? Okay, so next week we study properties of matter. So this Saturday we have a talk with Roberto Watanabe. He's the president of the Spiritist Federation of the state of São Paulo. And he's a director of courses in continuing Spiritist education, Spiritist philosophy. And he's going to talk about Leon Denis, revisiting the work of Leon Denis after death. This year is 175 years, not 125, Luis, like you said yesterday. 175 years of the birth of Leon Denis. So there is a series of lectures and events and everything. And so this book, After Death, is a very interesting book. It is translated into English and published by the United States Spiritist Federation. So he's going to talk about the book After Death, or the concept of after death. So this Saturday at 11 a.m. And this Sunday, which is the first Sunday of the month, we are going to study chapter, I think it's 19, sorry, of the book In the Greater World. We are going to continue the discussion of André Luiz and his grandfather that he met in the lower zones, that he's struggling. His grandfather was struggling in the lower zones. So if you haven't, if you are not in the last class and you want to be, you are going to be on Sunday, please read the last chapter, chapter 18, so you are more aware of what we're going to discuss on chapter 19, right? I'll give a small brief of the chapter before we start, but it's a very interesting chapter and a very interesting discussion. We're finishing In the Greater World. Very soon we're going to start Liberation, which is the next book on the André Luiz collection. Okay? Carol, can you do our final prayer for us?
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much. Thank you, John. Thank you, Amo, Luis. Infinite Creator and Supreme Intelligence, we are grateful to be together this evening for our studies of the Spirit's book. We are grateful for the amazing qualities of the words that have been written from the spirits to us, explaining the connection of matter and spirit. We are grateful to know that God is the creator above all. Matter is the link that bonds spirit. We are co-creators. We are creating in our daily lives. Our spirit does this. Matter transforms and spirit evolves. We are ever grateful for the studies. We are ever grateful to have the connectivity and the Zoom presentations that allow us to study together, to unify and continue to grow in Spiritism. We are truly grateful to our spiritual benefactors, the good spirits, the mentors who are with us. They are with us to inspire us and to propel us forward, to allow us to go more deeply into the studies, to have courage, to have faith, to continue on each day. We humbly ask throughout the week that we continue with our prayers, with our studies, with our mindfulness. May we always keep our thoughts elevated as we are able to do so each day, reserving some time for our studies, for our meditation and contemplations. As we close this meeting this evening, we ask humbly for the protection and guidance of the light and love of Christ within us. May we go forward to our family, friends, loved ones, and coworkers, and may we bring this evolution within us. May our spirits be blessed, and may we continue to bless others with the knowledge, the love, and the wisdom that we have attained. We close now and ask for the light and love of Christ to be with us, to inspire us, and to continue in our days, in our evenings, and our nights. We ask to bring forth this wisdom within us, to keep our hearts open and our minds evolving. We close now and ask to continue to be beacons of light as we go forth in peace. So be it.